जा नहीं रहे हो। अरे वो मेरे को घर पे भी मैंने क्या किया, सॉरी मतलब उनकी वाइफ और उनके
Good morning, friends. Good morning, friends. Online friends, please type hi. Chaliye, let's close our eyes for the elusive Shanti for 1 minute in our hearts and minds. So, a very, very quick recap. Aarti, your point noted. Okay, it should be done soon. A very, very quick recap. Brother, women in politics. Only 9% women MPs and MLAs throughout the country, according to an ADR report. That says a lot. Give me a quick analysis of women's reservation bill. Yes. हाँ. And हाँ. Analysis कहाँ है इसमें? You've just stated what the bill entails, which is fine. But what about the analysis? I'll slightly rephrase what you are saying. We'll say that during the early years after independence, at that time, women's organizations and women leaders seemed to be opposing the idea of women's reservation. But by 1990s, a broad demand had stemmed for women's reservation, okay, amongst women's organizations and civil society activists. Okay? A quick analysis of women's reservation bill or act. हाँ बताइए. Suhas Palshikar says, absolutely. It's a vote garnering kind of a political move. Or the bill was much delayed. Delay in implementation. अरे अभी क्या पता, अभी तो लागू ही नहीं हुआ है, तो इफेक्टिव है नहीं है. हाउ कैन यू से इट इज नॉट इफेक्टिव? हाँ तो वो उन्होंने बोला ठीक है कि डिलेड इंप्लीमेंटेशन. और दीपांकर गुप्ता जी, emphasis on the Gupta aspect of it. हाँ. Wonderful. In many countries which have high women's political representation, they still have high rates of crime against women, primarily or perhaps because of low participation of or low women police in the police force, or only 10% of the police in India is women. Or Nivedita Menon, very quote-worthy, obnoxious kind of a lady. The name itself is patronizing. Or Kancha Shepherd. हाँ मतलब the act is criticized for not provisioning for OBC reservation within the women's quota. बिल्कुल. और menon, it will only help perhaps the elite, urban, educated kind of women. बिल्कुल. Then we moved on to discussing what else? Development. बोलिए. चलो, women in development इन्होंने चुना है. Women are empowered with development on the one hand. On the other, तो इसमें development का क्या दोष है? I mean, how do you link that to development? You are right, but you have to link it to the nature or trajectory of development, na? Do that, brother. Women's status definitely improves with overall socio-economic development, but wonderful, but the fruits of development have not been equally distributed across sections of the society, or more specifically, men are greater beneficiaries of the developmental exercise than women, right? Or women and economy. There is a wage gap between men and women, or there is a gap in labor force participation rate. Women are overwhelmingly engaged in the unpaid care economy within the homes, or lack of financial literacy of women, or sexual harassment at the workplace, feminization of agriculture, feminization of poverty. Tell me about women glass ceiling, women and the legal framework. Various constitutional provisions and laws exist to secure the rights of, protect and safeguard women, such as Article 14, which provides that no discrimination amongst women. Equality, मैं क्यों बता रहा हूं? हाँ? Okay, Article 15, which is no discrimination on the grounds of, amongst other things, sex, or POSH Act, yani full form. Sorry? ठीक है, that is what the act is about. Prohibition or prohibition क्या? Prevention from sexual harassment at the workplace, or sati prohibition, or prohibition on human trafficking under Article 23. 23. Yes or no? Yes, 23. Or Article 39D, equal pay for equal work, equal opportunities in public employment, or analysis of all these beautiful laws that we have for women. ठीक है, implementation में क्या दिक्कत आ रही है बेटी? क्यों नहीं मिल रही? सबके लिए है, ये थोड़ी ना कह रहे हैं हम अमीर महिलाओं के लिए हैं. कानून में तो लिखा है हर महिला के लिए है. What is the problem in the implementation? You are right, but why is it that certain sections of women are unable? And for that matter, many of these pro-women laws, even privileged women, are unable to put into motion. क्या दिक्कत है, brother? Fewer women in the executive, in administration, in police force. Marital rapes are still going on, have not been, there are kind of lacunae in the legal framework on issues like marital rape. Low awareness of laws amongst women. Gender sensitization is low amongst the implementing agencies. Yes, there is this pressure, societal pressure to not go against family, kinship, who are amongst the perpetrators. Brother! हाँ, अब बताइए कब तक बचेंगे? क्यों नहीं पति को हम पकड़ के जेल में डालते? डंडे मारो, जेल में डालो, जस्टिस सर्व. There's a taboo associated with that. और फाइनेंशियल डिपेंडेंस होती है हस्बैंड पे. बिटिया बिटिया stop looking in your notebook. Yes. Yeah. What else? Then we discussed what? After women and constitutional framework? That's where we ended in life. Education. Any issues with women's education? You seem to be pretty well educated. Gender stereotypes. Sorry? Schools reinforce rather, gender stereotypes. For example, tell me again today. You have a lot of faith in my memory, but it's like concept of modest dressing, for instance, applies more, it is more stringently, or it is perhaps only applied to female students and not male students. है ना? किसी लड़के के शर्ट के दो बाल नहीं, सॉरी, तो बटन टूटे होंगे तो उसको थोड़ी ना कोई कुछ कहेगा. ठीक है. और बिटिया, लैक ऑफ गर्ल्स टॉयलेट्स इन स्कूल्स एंड कॉलेजेस. और फंक्शनल होते हैं, कुंडी लगी होती है और ताला ठोका होता है. हाँ. लैक ऑफ मेंस्ट्रुअल हाइजीन, सेक्सुअल हैरेसमेंट. ऐसा होता है क्या एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशंस में? इतना पाक रिश्ता होता है टीचर्स एंड स्टूडेंट्स का. व्हाट? विद्या मंदिर. हाँ, मतलब इट इज अ विद्या मंदिर. सो रियली इजंट इट अ वेरी 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 पाक रिश्ता? हाँ. बट any personally having known of such instances at a personal level? Raise your hands. So unfortunate na, so unfortunate. Brother, continue. सबसे अहम और statistical बात, lack of female teachers. बिटिया, लिटरेसी रेट में गैप है इन जेंडर टर्म्स 17% का. ठीक है. गर्ल्स आर लाइबिलिटी फॉर पेरेंट्स. व्हाई यू सेइंग दैट? हाँ, पढ़ाया था. बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. ठीक है. हाँ, absolutely correct. So when both parents are working, say in the fields, in rural areas, then oftentimes the girl child may be withdrawn from the education system or from schools so that they can take care of the younger children in the family, right? So this cultural expectation is not from the boys but from the girl child. Bilkul. Is there anything else that we had discussed apart from these? अब चलते हैं जीवन में आगे. हाँ, अब चलने दो जीवन में आगे. टॉकिंग अबाउट, चलो जब तक ऑन हो रहा है क्विकली बता दो. बिल्कुल. So the whole judicial process, very very legit. In fact, the whole investigative process in the context of rape, okay, or any sort of sexual harassment that women undergo, the whole investigative procedures and the judicial exercise is very very demeaning and entails kind of a loss of dignity. It does not respect the dignity of women. Till some time back, there used to be conducted what was called a 2-finger or 3-finger test in cases of rapes, where the woman was expected to have fingers inserted to kind of capture whether there has been penetration, which is like very very invasive and violative of a person's bodily integrity, right? They rejected concept of digital rape. ये क्या होता है भला? Oh, digits in the sense of fingers. Very well. I was thinking otherwise, like online. But yeah, please continue. They rejected that this could be a form of rape. Can anybody, sorry, but I'm not able to pay attention. How do I go to the original screen which I use? ये दूसरा सॉफ्टवेयर है. नहीं, this is not what it is, yeah. क्या? मैंने आपको ज्यादा टोक दिया इसलिए मुझे ये. सॉरी, आई डोंट नो. दिस इज देयर, लाइक वो 4 खाने बने आते हैं ना, यूं शुरू में ऑन करते हैं. ऑफ करके ऑन कर दो. somehow this always works, है ना. चाहे हम 21वीं सदी में आ गए हो, जो बजाज स्कूटर वाली टेक्नोलॉजी है उसको बस बंद करके किक मार दो या स्क्रीन ऑफ करनी पड़ेगी. आई डोंट थिंक दैट शुड बी दिस थिंग. यू आर गेटिंग टू, दैट साउंड्स टू अनएजुकेटेड. चलिए friends, today we will be continuing our discussion about the position and status of women in our society, with reference to begin with, the portrayal, role and position of women in Indian media. मीडिया में क्या हाल है महिलाओं का, बताइए ना. महिलाओं का, how are they seen, portrayed, imagined, assigned roles in, when I say media I mean picture, movies, TV serials, advertisements. Brother, you're saying attractive women are chosen as actresses or journalists to gain the audience. Very well. So the problem here is it the same thing? Very disappointing. Chaliye, we'll work with whatever we have. हाँ, ये होता तो था, इसके बाद कहां जाऊं. चलिए, we'll work with this today. Never mind, है ना, rather than. Sorry, it's okay, yeah. I can adjust to new technologies. Screen पे अब क्या करें? Let it be. Where? Like here? But how? No. Tell me very quickly. Tell me if you have anything to suggest. अरे ये था. Once. Yes. Thank you. चलो. So he has an issue with Sundar journalists. Why do we have only Sundar journalists and not the underlying point being that, why should physical attractiveness be a consideration? I mean, that does not add to one's journalistic acumen, right, Bitya? Amitabh Bachchan kind of grooving with an Aishwarya Rai. अब तो बहू है उनकी नहीं, with whoever, right? But much younger women. Yeah. Sexual harassment in films, in the film industry, absolutely. And also a huge gender pay gap. Top heroines को इतना पैसा नहीं मिलता जितना top heroes को मिलता है. And Me Too movement kind of, highlighted, or the Hema committee report highlighted the dark underbelly, where The female actors are subjected to widespread sexual exploitation. Yes or no? Of all people, friends, Bauji, Aloknath, he was accused. That guy has been playing the most sanskari Baujis of the world, across movies. And he was accused publicly in a Facebook post by one lady who worked in the film industry. Brother, misogynistic things they show in movies like, अरे न्यूज रिपोर्ट तो मैं बताऊंगा, आप मुझे पिक्चरें बताओ. डर मूवी, हाँ, उससे एक लड़का इंस्पायर हो गया. कहां से? राजीव चौक दिल्ली से एक लड़की को किडनैप कर लिया. तुम चाहते ही नहीं यहाँ की बच्चियां सीपी तक भी जा पाए. हाँ, इंड्यूसिंग फियर, डर. अब इससे क्या होगा? महिलाओं में डर फैल जाएगा. ब्रदर, media portrays women as weak and vulnerable, needing help and assistance of and protection of mighty men, macho men. Women का ऑब्जेक्टिफिकेशन है. एक गाना आया था ओके, ना ही गाएं. हाँ, आज की रात का कोई बता रहे हैं. So a lot of picturization is clearly objectifying women, brother. हाँ, lot of ads regarding fairness creams, है ना? क्योंकि fair is lovely, है कि नहीं? So equating beauty and kind of perpetuating very, very artificial, superficial and difficult to live up to kind of cosmetic beauty standards. Bitya, women are subjected to traditional roles. But they are criticized if in movies, if they are trying to have modern education, etc. But look at Karan Johar movies, yeah. I mean, they are all, in college campuses and beautiful girls and beautiful boys. Gender equality in that respect. And they are in colleges and having a great time and lifelong friendships, etc. Why do you say, brother? So female journalists cover more issues like fashion, softer issues, instead of politics, economics. ये सारे मर्दों के domains हैं. Is that really, does that still hold true? Like you have a Chitra, that Aaj Tak lady, and you have quite a few trailblazers like a Barkha Dutt. I used to really like her way of journalism. The objection which has now arisen is those female anchors cater to male audiences. What do you mean by that? Like are you suggesting they're there to titillate the male audience? It's a visual pleasure. Barkha Dutt, not really. I mean, but तो इसमें हमारी क्या गलती? If there are fewer female audiences watching or consuming news, तो इसमें भी हमें लताड़ दो. They are made to wear a lot of makeup, high heels, and not so comfortable coats. Makeup तो पता है वैसे, to be fair, makeup ना is expected from all persons on TV. All persons, including male anchors, including guests. मैं एक बार गया था किसी टीवी चैनल के उसमें, तो मेरे को पोतने लगे, and I had to resist. I was like, I would look grotesque, to put it mildly. तो only when I put my foot down, otherwise, and they were like, नहीं सर बड़ा normal है. और वो जो male anchor था वो भी अपने आप को पुतवा रहा है. So it is like very normal in case of, it's like if you've done school plays, वहां पे होता है ना, जो राम जी बनता है उनको भी पोत देते हैं, It's like you need to, because you'll have a lot of lights and stuff, so there's some such angle. Huh? Brother? Opportunities by sexual exploitation, or what we call the casting couch. Sexist humor. Example, on Instagram memes. More on mainstream media do you have sexist humor? Like, batao na, Gopi Bahu. Is she like portrayed as dumb? Very well. लैपटॉप वॉश कर देती है गोपी बहू. हाँ, बिल्कुल. So absolutely, बिटिया. Underrepresentation of women. There are not too many. There are plenty, I would say, of women on the screen, or not. Compared to men, there are still fewer women, you are saying, on screen. Is that the case? What's your, layman observation or take on this? क्या screen पे महिलाएं कब दिखती हैं? He's saying on screen there are more mahilas. Ageism is there, colorism is there. All that one could argue. टीवी सीरियल में महिलाएं ज्यादा दिखती हैं, पिक्चरों में मेन कर रहे होते हैं डिशुम डिशुम. जी, लड़की को विलेन परेशान कर रहा है और लड़का उसको हीरो बचाने जा रहा है और वो इंप्रेस हो जाती है. Absolutely. Absolutely, friends. You guys have hit the nail on the head. There is, see, एक जमाना था when there were very few female characters on screen. There were very few female characters on screen. And much of the screen time would be assigned to the male characters. Things have changed in this specific regard. Maitreyi Chaudhary कहती हैं कि women in Indian media, they have gone from a position of invisibility to hypervisibility. Invisibility to hypervisibility. And this shift has particularly taken place since 1990s. क्यों? पहले women कम दिखती थी screens पे, अब टीवी खोलते ही खूब सारी महिलाएं दिखेंगी. Why this change has taken place? Why do we have more women on screen today? क्या हुआ है 1990s में? Not just Hollywood. How many people would watch Hollywood movies? Sorry. Fashion companies आने लग गई. पहले नहीं होती थी. So there was an explosion in the media space, friends, in 1990s. There was an explosion. Satellite TV आया, फिर इंटरनेट वगैरह आया. Basically क्या था ना, before 1990s there was one channel, Akashvani or All India Radio, controlled by the government. One TV, Doordarshan. 1990s में media industry was opened up for private participation, and you saw many private players, big players like Star TV Network and several others. So now, since there was more media space, you needed to fill that media, those slots. You need content for that. So there was now ample space for portraying women on screen. So women went from near invisibility to hypervisibility. कोई भी टीवी चैनल खोल लो, so women specific या catering to a women audience kind of आपको टीवी सीरियल्स मिल जाएंगे. Yes or no? Lot of TV channels dedicated to say songs. उसमें भी क्या होगा? A lot of female dancers, female leads, etc. will be shown. So बहुत महिलाएं दिखने लग गई on screen. ठीक है? But Chaudhary says that, only grabbing screen time does not translate into a better portrayal of female characters on screen. It does not translate into women empowerment in any substantial way. What matters or what is important, friends, is how women are portrayed on screen. How women are portrayed on screen. And as you guys very rightly pointed out, on screen we see a lot of objectification of women. So women ki jo, everything from how women are addressed to how, क्या बोलते हैं उसको, cinematography or how the camera works. Basically, it tries to treat women as objects to be devoured by who? The male audience. For example, 1990s onwards एक trend शुरू हुआ है जिसको हम बोलते हैं item songs. Who is the item? It is a female character. Yes or no? So item girl. We never say item boys. Though you can have boys dancing around trees in movie songs, but they are never termed as item boys. They may be very beautiful or attractive physically, but they are never addressed as item boys. Yes or no? So when you call something an item, what does it mean? Literally thing, vastu. Uska vastukaran ho raha hai. So when women are portrayed, projected, and seen as items or things, क्या हो रहा है उनका? Objectification हो रहा है. They are not being seen as full persons, friends. Please appreciate. For example, when the camera captures a woman dancing in songs across movie industries in India, it focuses on specific body parts of the woman. So in one scene, they will capture the lips. Another, they will capture the butt. Another, they will capture the bust. Another, they'll capture the, what's it called? The waist. And so on and so forth. Men are never objectified in that way. Are you with me? Men are always seen as whole persons, while women are reduced to objects for male enjoyment. एक हमारे टाइम में, मतलब जब हम बच्चे थे, जवान थे, 1990s में गाना आया था, तू चीज बड़ी है मस्त मस्त. And it was a raging hit, Akshay Kumar and Raveena Tandon. Right? What does that song mean? And it was on everybody's lips. Tu cheese badi hai mast mast. That you are a wonderful thing or object. Yes or no? So women, through songs, through movies, through TV portrayal, they are projected as objects to be consumed by men. Songs में ऐसा बहुत चलता है, women को objectification. Not just portrayal में जो lyrics होते हैं उसमें. Yes or no? एक वो करीना कपूर का गाना है, क्या है वो, कि मैं टंगड़ी कबाब हुई, मैं झंडू बाम हुई, फेविकॉल से चिपका ले सैया, and all of that, which indicates what? That a woman is being compared to or being considered as akin to an object or a thing. In other words, she does not have feelings. She does not have emotions. Are you with me? She's something to be devoured or enjoyed. Yes or no? As if women are owned by men. That is what the movies project. Yes or no? और ये कोई नई चीज नहीं है, friends. Male ownership of women has been a recurrent theme in Indian media, friends. Recurrent theme. Go back to what is considered a classic. कभी कभी मेरे दिल में ख्याल आता है कि जैसे तुझको बनाया गया है मेरे लिए, तू अब से पहले सितारों में बस रही थी कहीं, तुझे जमीन पे बुलाया गया है मेरे लिए, ब्ला ब्ला ब्ला, घूंघट उठा रहा हूं मैं, एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ. सिमट रही है तू शर्मा के अपनी बाहों में. The idea is women are stereotyped into certain narrow social configurations through such media projection. Yes or no? ठीक. अभी भी हैं बेबो में बेबो. Maybe I've not heard that. एक 2014 में स्टडी हुई थी by UN Women. It's a UN arm or agency. It's there in the handout. And Gina Davis Institute on Gender and Media. I'm quoting from the handout. It found that Indian films rank high on sexualization of women. Indian films rank high on sexualization of women. Meaning what, friends? That women characters, a good chunk of them, are there just to titillate the male audience. They don't have any substantive role in the telling of that story. Yes or no? The story pretty much revolves around the male leads. कोई पिक्चर उठा लो तुम सलमान भोई एंड कटरीना कैफ की. क्या काम होता है कटरीना कैफ का पिक्चर में? क्या काम होता है? डांस करना, इतराना, रोना, नखरे करना, ऑल ऑफ दैट. यस और नो? कि मेल ऑडियंस का मन करे मैं मना लूं इसको. आर यू विद मी? Who is a better actor, by the way? It's a very tough contest between the two. But irrespective, who will have more dialogues and more screen time? Salman bhai. Yes or no? So women characters are often used to sexualize the cinema. 35% female characters in movies are shown with some nudity. Almost 1/3 of all female characters, माएं और बहनें और ये सब निकाल दो, तो they are shown with some level of nudity. Women had less than 1/4 of all speaking roles. So all the male actors will be doing the talking and the dialogue delivery and taking the story forward, while the women characters will be effectively sidekicks. भैया इधर धन्यवाद. A 2021 study by Gina Davis Institute on Gender and Media found that Indian advertisements also promote gender stereotypes. Advertisements, in a similar fashion, friends, they promote gender stereotypes. Serials में भी आप देखोगे gender stereotypes को promote किया जाता है. Yes or no? And there is sexualization, objectification of women in many ads. The most glaring example of that comes to my mind, or which is stuck to my mind, frankly, is that Slice. Absolutely. Yes or no? With, again, Katrina Kaif. Thank you. ठीक है? One sec, yeah. लिखिए. Please write. I'm dictating a bit on women in media. जहां लिखना है लिखो. In popular cinema, and TV serials, women are portrayed stereotypically. Full stop. She is depicted. One student is saying Bhojpuri industry shows women as sex objects. Uski to baat hi na karo bhaiya. Bhojpuri industry and these Punjabi pop songs. हनी सिंह टाइप्स एंड क्या नाम है उस लड़के का, बादशाह वगैरह, कि वो आती मारुति में और जाती मर्सिडीज में, है ना, या समथिंग लाइक दैट, दैट विमेन आर बेसिकली गोल्ड डिगर्स, सर्टेन काइंड्स ऑफ स्टीरियोटाइप्स। बिल्कुल सब में। क्या लिखा है बिटिया? शी इज डिपिक्टेड समटाइम्स एज सीता, डैश a devoted wife, dutifully, ब्यूटीफुली नहीं, ड्यूटीफुली, ड्यूटीफुली, ड्यूटीफुली following in her husband's footsteps. Yes or no? कि आप आगे आगे चलिए, मैं पीछे पीछे चलूंगी. Helping him achieve his life goals. तो एज अ वुमन मेरा जीवन का लक्ष्य क्या है? मेरे पति के जीवन का लक्ष्य पूरा हो, यही मेरे जीवन का लक्ष्य है. Helping him achieve his life goals, comma, chaste, chaste and pure, loyal, weak and vulnerable, waiting longingly to be rescued by her hero. है कि नहीं? और नेक्स्ट सेंटेंस फुल स्टॉप डालने के बाद, और शी मे बी डिपेक्टेड एज शूर्पनखा. शूर्पनखा, हाँ हाँ लिखो ना, गप मार रहा हूं. डैश evil, manipulative, sexually predatory, trying to woo the husband of another woman. Woo, patana, WOO. समझ गए ना? दीज आर टू एक्सट्रीम स्टीरियोटिपिकल प्रोजेक्शंस ऑफ विमेन इन इंडियन मीडिया. एक तरफ आप सती सावित्री नारी पतिव्रता, है ना, एंड सर्वगुण संपन्न, but also weak, vulnerable, dependent entirely, materially and emotionally on the hero. So devoid of any sort of agency or independent existence. That is one kind of portrayal. And the other is as the vamp, सूपनखा वाला, जो काली बिंदी लगाती है मोटी वाली, या वो सांप वाली बिंदी लगाती है कुमोलिका टाइप्स. यस और नो? जो बैकलेस ब्लाउजेस पहनती है एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट पैकेज. यस और नो? वो जो इवल वैम्प सी होती है, स्कीमिंग, और वो नागिन. हाँ ठीक है. इंक्रीजिंगली एक और भी आया है इसमें मार्केट में, एक और पोर्ट्रेयल आया है. इंक्रीजिंगली women are also portrayed as apsara, apsara, dash, attractive, oozing sexual energy. Yes or no? Oozing सेक्सुअल एनर्जी फूट फूट के निकल रही है उसमें से जवानी. And using her charms on the main male lead character. ठीक, ये कौन होती हैं? जो आइटम गर्ल टाइप पोर्ट्रेयल होता है. They aren't exactly vampish, but they are also not pure Sati Savitri material, right? They are like a full of sexually खूब attractive, yeah, eye candy, absolutely. हाँ, एंड उसमें मेल लीड को कैसे दिखाते हैं? एक लीड होता है अक्षय कुमार जैसा या आमिर खान जैसा, बड़ा तपस्वी टाइप का. जैसे अगर आपने वो देखी हो जिसमें ये आईपीएस बन रहा होता है आपका आमिर खान, सरफरोश. उसमें क्या था? आमिर खान पढ़ रहा है, दिन रात एक कर रहा है, बिकॉज ही वांट्स टू क्लियर द सिविल सर्विसेज एग्जाम, एंड देन दैट डैमसेल सोनाली बेंद्रे, यस और नो, शी इज कंटिन्यूअसली ट्राइंग टू डिस्ट्रैक्ट हिम कि चलो यहां घूमने चलो और ये करो और मैं यहां सुंदर लग रही हूं एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट. यस और नो? दैट इज द अप्सरा पोर्ट्रेयल. No, not for mythological serial, for God's sake. For mainstream cinema and TV serials, we are saying. हाँ, बिल्कुल, सीता सूप न खा. अनुपमा is which type? सीता type. Very weak, vulnerable, डरी, सेमी, घबराई, जीत भी रही है हर चीज में, तब भी she'll remain continuously scared. Yes or no? कि oh, sorry, हर चीज में. She's very unsure of herself as a character, right? Moving on, okay? So these are all the issues associated, and you can obviously mention the Hema Committee report, which highlighted sexual exploitation, the hashtag #MeToo movement, which highlighted the sexual exploitation of women in the film industry. You can mention the gender pay gap between actors and actresses, right? All of that later. Moving on, discussing a very important and serious social issue, that of rape, and of course other forms of sexual violence against women. He's asking, what about, is there any positive things we can say about the portrayal of women in media? Definitely. For once, there are given the media explosion, not just with satellite TV in the 1990s, with the subsequent advent of social media, internet, there's a further explosion in the media space. With that, women are, and now OTT platforms. So a lot of women-centric cinema is now being made. A much wider array of roles and portrayals of women we can see in mainstream media or OTT platforms pe jo wo aate hain. We are also exposed to media from other societies and cultures. Are you with me? Several women actors have, what should I say? They have undertaken, or rather, they have effectively portrayed strong female characters which are exemplary and possibly role models for a wider audience. Are you with me? Lot of things are happening, definitely. जैसे उनकी आप पिक्चरें देखो, हमारी नाम भूल गया मैं उनका, विद्या बालन, उनका भी सेक्सुअलाइजेशन रहता है. एक उन्होंने वो की थी सिल्क स्मिता के ऊपर बायोग्राफी, very dirty picture. But a lot of her movies, they are very substantive and very hatke kind of, not conforming to the gender stereotypes kind of roles. उसकी एक आई थी, वो खूनी टाइप होती हैं, she plays a pregnant lady, कहानी है ना. खैर, और movies like थप्पड़, they are raising women's issues in a very, very effective manner. Movies like मारी लड़कियां छोरों से कम है के, दंगल, मैरी कॉम, एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ. खैर, Acha, Mrs. I've heard a lot about. I've not been able to watch it yet. It's about what? Domestic control and even violence? Or basically control. I saw a couple of interesting movies, Sri Devi ki, on these lines. I think one was English Winglish, and she's making laddus and is a very devoted housewife, and all her efforts are being, they are dismissed by the husband, like, tum kya hi karogi kind of a thing. Which one was it? English Winglish only, na? Very nice movie. No, involvement of women increasingly in the production process and not just on the screen. Gina Davis Institute study found that there are much fewer female directors, writers, and women behind the camera also in Indian film industry. Yeah, but yeah, that is changing gradually, one could definitely say. Let us move ahead. Discussing now the issue of rape. The issue of rape, friends, has become increasingly discussed and talked about. It is, come, should I say, from being hidden beneath the surface, being spoken of only in hush-hush tone. It has now become an important topic of wider social debate and discussion. And this change, the very fact that we are talking about rape as a society, khul ke, in newspapers and TV debates and classrooms, this change has taken place since the Nirbhaya gang rape in Delhi in about 2012, if I remember correctly. Sorry? Around that time, right? Since then, the issue of rape and gang rape and sexual violence against women, safety for women in public places, has become increasingly a matter of public concern. Why do rapes take place? What's your sense, friends? Why do rapes take place? Come on, brother. On the basis of caste, Bitya, to assert male dominance on women, lack of sex education. Raise your hands, please. Rise in unemployment. He's saying वेल्ले लोग रेप करते हैं. बिटिया, the men who rape, they have some mental health problems perhaps. B grade films and pornography aggravate or rapist tendencies. Because, correct me if I'm paraphrasing you wrongly, it is because women are wearing shorter dresses, which are more revealing. That is also kind of creating a ठीक है, media portrayal links certain kind of clothing to sexual activity. So lacks implementation of laws, low or absent morality. Family is not teaching the right kind of values and behaviors to its members. Bitya? Religious atrocities. Bitya? Peer group. Elaborate. What do you mean? The kind of people you hang out with impacts your thinking. So you are saying that rapists, their friend circle is depraved in a certain way. Brother? Lack of education. Is it a lower class phenomena, if I may bluntly ask? I saw a hand here, another. Brother. Rise of male population in urban areas, and how is that linked to rape? Due to migration, yes, I understand. Sexually deprived men commit rapes. People are migrating to cities without a sexual partner or wife. Men are migrating, and therefore that, with no other avenue, outlet, they commit rape. How a man sees a woman, what he thinks about a woman, weak judiciary, poor punishment system as per law, movies, TV, mobiles, making porn available to corrupted minds, cases in court just pending, criminals not punished. Lack of awareness in legal awareness. Teenage boys may not know the legal ramifications of their actions. Intoxication. Poor lifestyle. What do you mean by that? She's saying that those who have less money, okay, lower class persons, they have no other source of entertainment. How many of you would subscribe to that kind of a reasoning? All right, continue. Deep desire for sexual pleasure. Brother? Absence of proper street lights, CCTV cameras, and other security features in public areas. This thing he's saying, it is a desire for sex and unavailability of a partner, which results in it. How many of you would subscribe to that? Are rapes Bitya? Sorry? You are agreeing with his point of view. How many of, is there only one person who thinks that is rape due to tharak? Unsatisfied, unrealized sexual desire amongst men and boys? Is that the reason? Brother? You're saying those guys are like crazy, psychologically ill. Bitya? Inability to take rejection. Bitya? Sorry? So the notion of how important consent is in case of sexual activity, that is not well ingrained or well accepted by people at large. Brother? तो सही परवरिश नहीं मिली जिनको, वो रेप कर लेते हैं. Psychological problems and very well. And some triggers like pornography. So friends, very importantly, what do you say? Rape or other such sexual crimes are rarely or in the least about sexual gratification or fulfillment of the desire for sex. Please appreciate. You know, that thing, that a heightened desire for sex is far, far, far more common than the incidence of rape. Are you with me? A lot of young boys and men would either be experiencing as we speak or would have gone through certain such periods. Think about your own lives, young boys. Yes or no? But that does not in itself result in such heinous sexual crimes like rape. Also, there are other ways to get rid of that sexual urge. Are you with me? Also, people who have a sexual partner, say married men, also commit rape. It's not only unmarried young men who commit rape. Married men also commit rape. Are you with me? So rape is not so much, though on the surface it seems to be a sexual crime or a sexual act in the main, but it is far more importantly about power. It is a power dynamic at play, friends. It is an assertion of male power and dominance over women. Now, why are men asserting their dominance in this kind of perverse form over women? One way of understanding or explaining this phenomena, please appreciate that in the traditional mindset that prevails in a patriarchal society, women are considered as rightfully belonging to the domestic sphere. महिला की सही जगह कहां होती है? घर की चार दीवारी में, रसोई में. Yes or no? While the outside world, the public sphere, is imagined as belonging to men. तो बाहर से अगर दूध लेके आना है, कौन लेके आएगा? घर का लड़का लेके आएगा. Are you with me? नौकरी पे जाके पैसे कमाना है, कौन कमाएगा? आदमी कमा के आएगा. वॉर पे जाना है, कौन जाएगा? मेन जाएंगे. ट्रेड के लिए जाना है, सात समुंदर पार, कौन जाएगा? मेन जाएंगे. So in traditional patriarchal societies, women are imagined as belonging to the private sphere of family and home, and men are considered as in charge of the public domain. But now, friends, with what is happening with modernization, for example, female literacy rate is on the rise. Due to a variety of factors, more women are venturing out of the homes for education, also for jobs, or simply for fun, just to hang around. Yes or no? So, by some men, it is interpreted as, women transgressing from the traditionally imposed boundaries. Are you with me? So this sexual crimes like rape, eve teasing, harassment in public places, these are in a way a patriarchal backlash. It is a reaction from the patriarchal society to put women where? In their rightful place, which is inside the home. Are you with me? तो अगर घर के बाहर निकलोगी तो यही होता है घर के बाहर. तो ठीक. So one is to express male dominance. Another aspect, friends, that in several patriarchal societies and cultures, including in ours, there is a very widely prevalent phenomena of victim blaming. अगर रेप हुआ या कोई भी sort of sexual harassment हुआ, teasing हुआ, fingers will be pointed at whom? Whose conduct? The victim. The female victim. Regarding her clothing. Regarding the odd hours at which she was out. Regarding why did she accompany boys to a certain kind of a place? Why was she befriending boys? Yes or no? Was she too friendly? And so on and so forth. Are you with me? And this is not something theoretical or too rare. How many of you heard such arguments in your families and own circles? कि कुछ तो लड़की की भी गलती होगी या उसने ऐसा किया ही क्यों कि वो गई क्यों घर से बाहर. Like निर्भया के टाइम पे I remember hearing from close family members, यार what was she doing out at night at 11? And that is also what the perpetrators said. There was a documentary, India's Daughters, on the Nirbhaya, in the aftermath of in the Nirbhaya gang rape, wherein the filmmaker, she interviewed the perpetrators of the crime and their advocate. So the perpetrator said what? She was out at so late an hour in the night with her boyfriend, watching movie. So obviously she was looking for fun. Are you with me? In fact, their advocate, you know what he said? It was so shocking. He said something to the effect, you know, girls are like flour. If you leave them out on the road, then dogs will devour it. In other words, that girl needs to remain or be kept protected within the confines of the home. Are you with me? So there's a lot of blame which is put on the victim herself. So that will deter effective reporting. मेरे पे ही इल्जाम आएगा, छींटे आएंगे, मेरा character assassination होगा. Yes or no? There is also victim shaming. Rape is considered as a huge matter of shame, dishonor. But for whom? The perpetrator or the victim? For the victim. हिंदी में रेप के लिए एक फ्रेज यूज होता है, इज्जत लुट गई. You have lost honor. Who loses honor due to rape? The victim, and not the perpetrator. Yes or no? That will deter a person who is a victim of the crime from talking about it publicly. Are you with me? As you guys rightly pointed out, friends, media plays a role in normalizing crimes against women, subtly or overtly or covertly. For example, in many movies, friends, you would have seen there is what is, you know, shown as very innocuous, harmless, fun, छेड़छाड़. Yes or no? लड़कियों को छेड़ा जाता है पिक्चर्स में. और कौन छेड़ता है? हीरो छेड़ता है, विलेन नहीं छेड़ता, हीरो छेड़ता है. Those heroes are role models for a lot of people. Please appreciate. So it is shown as pleasant, desirable, cute kind of behavior. हमारे जमाने में एक वो गाना आया था आमिर खान का, उसकी पिक्चर आई थी दिल विद माधुरी दीक्षित. So they are shown in college and he is teasing her कि खंबे जैसी खड़ी है, लड़की है, फुलझड़ी है, पटाखे की लड़ी है, आंखों पे गुस्सा है, लबों पे नाली है, ऐसे कर करके. So he is objectifying her and teasing her, and girls are swooning over Amir Khan. So the next guy who teases a girl in his college, he will say मैं भी कितना cute हूं. Yes or no? मैं क्या कर रहा हूं? मैं वही कर रहा हूं जो आमिर खान कर रहा है. Are you with me? तो गर्ल्स को स्टॉक करना, कौन करता है? मूवीज में हीरोज करते हैं और दिखाते हैं. देखो मूवीज में हमें सिखाया जाता है, एक हमारे टाइम में मूवी आई थी तेजाब, अनिल कपूर की. अगेन माधुरी दीक्षित वॉज द हीरोइन. सो उसमें बताता है वो अपने दोस्तों से शर्त लगाता है कि मैं एक्स मतलब द प्रोटैगनिस्ट, फीमेल प्रोटैगनिस्ट माधुरी दीक्षित को पटा लूंगा इन एक्स डेज, राइट? एंड ही हैड सम नोटबुक वेयर ही हैड रिटन समहाउ 36 या 100 तरीके लड़की पटाने के, राइट? सो इट्स अबाउट हाउ ही वूज हर, you know, so he'll keep teasing her and provoking her and so on and so forth. अगर आपको लड़की पटानी है फ्रेंड्स, पिक्चरों में क्या सिखाया जाता है? कैसे पटाओ? क्या करो? स्टॉक करो. फिर और अगर वो ना कह दे तो? हाँ, उसकी ना में हाँ है उसकी. yes or no? So you don't take no for an answer, you remain at it continuously. yes or no? और अगर वो तुम्हें थप्पड़ मार दे, हीरो को हीरोइन थप्पड़ मार दे गलत तरीके से छूने वूने के चक्कर में, तो क्या मतलब? कि उसने छू लिया. yes or no? फिर वो हीरो 2 दिन नहाएगा नहीं और समथिंग ऑफ दी सॉर्ट. आर यू विद मी? एंड हाउ डू यू गेट बैक टू हर? हीरो सिखाते हैं मूवीज में, बाय दी वे विलेंस की तो मैं बात ही नहीं कर रहा. You forcefully kiss her full on the mouth, and then she will realize your manliness and fall in love with you. Yes or no? ऐसे लड़की पटाते हैं according to popular cinema, which by the way inspires a lot of young men and boys. It is a very important channel for social conditioning, friends. A lot of things we learn subtly, consciously, subconsciously from cinema. Yes or no? And it seems larger than life. It seems well accepted, praised. Yes or no? एक और आमिर खान की मूवी थी, बहुत मूवी है मेरे पास, उसमें वो माधुरी दीक्षित का मॉक रेप करता है, शायद दिल में ही था या किसी पिक्चर में. So he scares her that he is raping her, and then he says, "Oh, जोक था." ठीक है? So they were making a mockery of a heinous crime like rape. Are you with me? So in a lot of movies, what do? We normalize. गाने आते हैं, अब करूंगा तेरे साथ गंदी बात. Yes or no? So you start sending sexualized messages to your female colleagues and known persons. क्यों? मैं भी तो क्यूट हूं, क्या नाम है उसका, शाहिद कपूर की तरह. Are you with me? So this is what popular cinema, how it normalizes eve teasing, stalking, you know, not accepting rejection. So there is a very thin line, friends, separating Anil Kapoor and Shakti Kapoor. Are you with me? जो हीरो कर रहा है और जो विलेन कर रहा है उसमें बहुत ज्यादा अंतर नहीं है, ब्रदर. Girls are also at fault. They romanticize, huh? So see, I'm not saying it is boys' fault or media or girls' fault. What we are saying, there's a certain media projection which perpetuates certain kinds of thinking patterns in society. Are you with me? And then these media images, these mindsets and attitudes, they are carried over in the wider society. You know, when I was in college, we used to have a lot of such movies. One of my friends, he used to do what? Acquaintances rather, during college time. He would fixate his eyes on a girl in the college. Okay? And he would continuously stare at her. Dekhte rahega. Then she would, you know, the moment she would look at him or try to catch him looking at her continuously, he'll say what? Dekh rahi hai. You know? So he would take that as an encouragement to continue with that perverse behavior. And then what would people say? Or he would say, "Kaun hai wo? Bhabhi hai teri." Without her, forget consent, knowledge. Yes or no? So ये एक्चुअल सोशल बिहेवियर में ट्रांसलेट हो रहा है जो हम पिक्चरों से सीख रहे हैं. Also, friends, please appreciate, men are considered as owners, particularly of their wives. Kamla Bhasin, she says, you look at all Indian languages, cultures, religious communities, the terminology that they use indicates ownership of women by men or by husbands. What is the Hindi term for a husband? Pati. Pati means what? Lakhpati, he who owns a lakh. Karodpati, he who owns a crore. Simply pati, simply he who owns. Pati kaun hai? Patni ka owner hai. So various words in Indian languages for husband, like pati. In fact, it's interesting, even in the English language, the word husband indicates an owner manager. You've heard of animal husbandry? It indicates the one who owns and manages those animals. Like, so Angrezi mein bhi wahi hai. But Kamla Bhasin points out how in Indian culture, various terms to refer to husband indicate ownership and control of women by their husbands. Pati, Shohar, Prananath. Yes or no? So man is what? He is the owner, controller, manager, and God, deity for the wife. So rape, as originally envisaged, was a crime against the man, that his wife was sexually accessed without his consent or permission. Are you with me? So if I own something, can I violate my own control and ownership over it? How can I? So a man can never rape his own wife. That is why marital rape is not criminalized in India. Or India में एक यूनियन विमेन एंड चाइल्ड डेवलपमेंट मिनिस्टर थी, मेनका गांधी, हु इज एन एनिमल राइट्स एक्टिविस्ट. कुत्ते बिल्लियों के अधिकारों के लिए वो सड़क पे उतरी है बहुत. एंड शी सेड इंडियन सोसाइटी में इट इज नॉट कंड्यूसिव टू क्रिमिनलाइज मैरिटल रेप. क्यों? बिकॉज मैन हियर इज considered as the owner of the wife. Are you with me? Rape, friends, is also often accompanies conflicts. In conflict situations, what happens, for example, whenever wars take place, invasions or external aggressions take place, communal riots take place, caste-based conflicts take place, ethnic strife takes place, who are specifically targeted? Women. In all such situations, and it has been going on since long throughout much of the world. Abhi Manipur mein we saw few months back, Kuki Mighty conflict. Women from one community, they were paraded naked by members of another. Lot of times when Dalits have to be set right, Dalit women are subjected to gang rape by higher caste men. Yes or no? Why? It is typically women are, amongst more on the civilian side, less frequently, less likely to be directly involved in armed conflict. Then why are women particularly targeted, Bitya? Absolutely. A community's honor is supposed to vest, or it is very intimately linked with preserving the sexual access, monopoly of sexual access to the women of the community. So it is a way of dishonoring the opponent, that you are not able to maintain sexual monopoly over your community's women. It is considered as the biggest sign of dishonor. Yes or no? Urvashi Butalia ने स्टडी किया था how during partition of India, on both sides of the border, on the one side you had Hindus and Sikhs, on the other side you had Muslims. Many Muslims from India migrated to Pakistan and what is today Bangladesh, then East Pakistan, and many Hindus and Sikhs from Pakistan, West and East, migrated to India. And in the riots and bloodshed that accompanied the partition, women of all three communities were subjected to rape by members of the other communities. Are you with me? Khushwant Singh has very graphically captured all these in his rather moving book, Train to Pakistan. Absolutely, Siri. So it is a show of victory or power in shaming the other community. And many times what people did, they killed members, women of their own community to prevent the dishonor of the community, lest the women be captured and raped by the adversary. Are you with me? उर्वशी बुटालिया ने तो इंटरव्यूज लिए कई लोगों से जिन्होंने खुद अपनी बहनों माओं को मारा था, कई सिखों के उन्होंने वो लिए. So the honor of the community is so important, high. Imagine, and they were not, what should I say, Veshi Darinde. They were loving husbands, sons, etc. and brothers who killed females of their own community to preserve the honor, or rather to prevent dishonor due to rape. So rape in this sense, friends, is also an important political tool, right? To kind of win, it's a mark of victory over an opponent. Honor killings भी हम देखते हैं. Yes or no? चलिए, let's take a quick short break. We are done with discussing various expressions of patriarchy or male dominance and women's subordination in society, be it in religious imagery and scriptures, be it in the ineffective implementation of pro-women laws, be it in the domain of politics and economy where women are lagging behind substantially, be it in terms of lower educational attainments and challenges in the education system, certain stereotypical portrayal in media, or heinous crimes like rape. Okay? But moot point, friends, that women in India are subjected to several disadvantages, disabilities, have less access to resources and opportunities, and are accorded lower status, prestige, power than men. Now we take a short break. एक सेकंड बेटे. Please settle down, friends, and quickly. So friends, we have understood in quite detail the patriarchal nature of Indian society. How do you want Indian society to be? क्या ये patriarchal व्यवस्था बनाए रखें या should we get rid of it? Men, I've got your answer. Huh? Should we keep this patriarchal arrangement or should we make efforts to get rid of it? बताइए, जिसको ये व्यवस्था पलटनी है, बदलनी है, हाथ खड़े करें. If you want that this patriarchal social arrangement should be undone. Few others are quite all right with it. Of course, you benefit from it. Chaliye. So let us talk about addressing patriarchy and male dominance in Indian society. कैसे करेंगे? Women's movements के जरिए. Women's movements, friends. Tell me, what do we know about the feminist movement in India? Anything, non-academic, anything. What's happening? Any efforts for women's rights, empowerment, any struggles to raise women's issues that you know of already without having studied in sociology? Bitya. Self-help groups. Very well. A lot of women-focused self-help groups are there. And women are actually quite active participants in the SHG movement. Savitri Bai Phule, kya boli? Started modern education for women. और बताइए. Women organizations like Seva, Self-Employed Women's Association by Ela Bhatt. Don't write Alia Bhatt. है ना? हाँ. NGOs, कौन सी क्या? बेटी बचाओ अभियान करके NGO है. Very well. Sorry? Women's compartments in metro. और बताइए. See, when we say women's movement, we are not talking about like physical movement from, okay? हाँ, brother. Sorry? पिंजरा तोड़ मूवमेंट क्या थी? उल्लेख कीजिए. Do you know about पिंजरा तोड़? तो सुनिए. अच्छा, you were a part of it क्या? You were like, मुझे तो पता ही है. अच्छा. गर्ल्स की हॉस्टल टाइमिंग को थी कि ये 9 बजे का 8 बजे का कर्फ्यू लड़कियों पे ही क्यों लगता है, लड़कों पे नहीं लगता. तो पिंजरा तोड़, डिमांडिंग ग्रेटर फ्रीडम एंड ऑटोनॉमी. और बताइए ब्रदर. हैशटैग मी टू मूवमेंट, टेम्पल एंट्री मूवमेंट्स इन सबरीमला. हाँ, सबरीमला. One second, we don't really call it the temple entry movement. Temple entry is typically associated with the Dalit, this thing. But yes, it is the same thing, or access for women to temples and other places of worship. Kasturba Gandhi Balika Vidyalaya for dropout girls. Sarkari measures are one thing, more focusing on women's movements, civil society mobilization, people's efforts. Absolutely, a lot of protests and agitations in the aftermath of the Nirbhaya gang rape in Delhi, focusing on women's safety. Likewise, more recently, after the RG Kar medical college incident in Kolkata. All India Women's Association by leaders like Annie Besant. Brother, social reform movements like focusing on women's education and the works. Absolutely, friends. Thank you. So we know pretty much. Women's movements in India, friends. A lot has been happening in women's movements, demanding women's rights, demanding systemic changes, demanding gender equality in India. Since at the very least, since कब शुरू हुई women's movements? Since the colonial period. Radha Kumar, she's written a book titled A History of Doing. History of Doing, wherein she classifies the women's movements in India into 3 phases. 3 phases. Okay? The first phase began during the, or was during the colonial period. The first demands for women's, or the first raising of gender issues, women's issues, began around 19th century. Around 19th century until about 1915. The second phase of the first wave was from 1915 till about 1950, or till independence. So the first wave of women's movements in India can be further classified into 2 phases. Okay, what we call the first wave of women's movements, or the feminist movement in India. The initial phase. Please appreciate one very striking thing about the women's movements in India were that they were begun by men. Women's issues were first raised by progressive men. Men like Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Ishwar Chandra Vidya Sagar, Dayanand Saraswati, Jyoti Rao Phule, etc. So it was begun by men. Also appreciate, initially there was no focused movement raising only women's issues. Rather, women's issues were taken up as a part of a broader agenda of socio-religious reforms. So these movements like Arya Samaj, Brahmo Samaj and the works, they were trying to rejuvenate Hindu society or Indian society, address various social ills, in which they also took up women's issues. Are you with me? So they were not dedicated to women's issues, rather they were talking about a host of issues. For example, weeding out untouchability, removing the excesses of caste system, tribal development, and so on and so forth. Also, women's issues were taken up. Doing away with superstition and mindless rituals, reinterpreting Hindu philosophy, revisiting the scriptures, so many things. Also taking up women's issues. Okay? What kind of issues were taken up? Acha. Also, what kind of issues were taken up? Issues like banning sati, issues like regulating the age of marriage, widow remarriage, permission for widow remarriage, women's education ya girl child education, parda system, child marriage, all these traditional or customary practices were attacked, questioned, challenged. Okay? There's a handout which has been shared with you guys with these details. I'm sharing from the handout. In the handout that has been shared with you today, there is one on women's movements in India. So the need to write will be less. Yeah, that's why I'm sharing with you. So initially it was progressive, Western educated, liberal minded men who began these or took up these first efforts to improve women's condition in our society. Soon after, they were joined by their female kith and kin. In other words, women from some of the progressive families. They, during this phase, also started raising women's issues. Women like Swarna Kumari Devi. कौन थी स्वर्ण कुमारी देवी? वाइफ ऑफ, यही उनका वजूद है, यही उनकी आइडेंटिटी है. She belonged to which family? Very reputed. Sorry? No? Tagore family. She was a sister of this guy, Rabindranath Tagore, a daughter of Debendranath Tagore. ठीक है? Elder sister थी उनकी, स्वर्ण कुमारी देवी. She started Sakhi Samiti to help widows. Then another Sarla Devi. She started Bharat Stree Mahamandal to promote women's education. Sarla Devi कौन थी? Wife of who? Wife of who? बताओ फिर, ज्यादा wife of चल रहा है तो. No, she was not. How can you? She was not wife of Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, for God's sake. Her full name was Sarla Devi Chaudrani. तो चौधरी जी की wife थी. She was the daughter of Swarna Kumari Devi. Okay, also belonging to the Tagore clan. And very interestingly, Bapu used to call her his spiritual wife. Sarla Devi ji. हाँ. So where were we? Sarla Devi. A spiritual wife of Bapu. In the sense, she was married to another gentleman, and Bapu shared a close platonic relationship with Sarla Devi, and she would accompany him on his all India tours. Right? When Ba was bedridden in Delhi. So, and he would write letters to her that you haunt me in my sleep. It's all in the public domain. Huh? And he said ki you must have cast your spell on Nehru, and now you are doing the same tricks with me. ठीक है, खैर. More importantly, Sarla Devi, she pioneered. She was among the pioneers of women's education in India. ये सब मत लिखना उनके पर्सनल लाइफ के बारे में, ठीक है? Guys, please check. It should be there perhaps as a part of another handout. Women's movements, online students, women's movements in India, and confirm. Just go through the entire handout. There should be pages on women's movements in India. And confirm. Okay, you had people like Tarabai Shinde, Savitribai Phule. Tarabai Shinde, she was the author of Stree Purush Tulana, which literally means comparison of men and women. In this text, she developed the first systematic critique of Hinduism as a source of legitimizing patriarchal domination in Indian society. She criticized Hinduism as patriarchal. Thank you, students, for confirming that you have the handout with you, online students. Savitribai Phule, wife of Jyotirao Phule. She was a pioneer in women's education, opened modern schools in कहाँ? Pune. बिल्कुल. ठीक है? So a lot of such efforts were there during the first phase. What is your assessment of these efforts? Of these efforts that we've discussed? Did they amount to anything? Were they able to successfully raise women's issues? Yes, definitely they were impactful. Particularly, they were able to ensure that the colonial government passes progressive legislation on these issues. So legislation was passed banning sati. Legislation was passed allowing widow remarriage. Legislation was passed regulating the age of marriage. And so on. So yes, several successful attempts were made during this phase, which resulted in important legislative developments. However, what? The social base of these movements was somewhat narrow. These movements were more, their appeal was more focused on city-based, educated, upper caste, middle class kind of women. So these movements did not resonate with or take up the issues of, say, Dalit women, rural women, Adivasi women, and so on. Theek? The second phase of the first wave, yani this period, 1915 to 1950, this was marked by who? Who was the towering figure in Indian social and political life during this period? Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi's impact on women's movement, friends, was substantial. Substantial. What do we know about Gandhi's thoughts, his actions regarding women's issues? Anything? We have some idea now about his efforts to remove untouchability. Anything regarding women, Bitya? He encouraged women to take part in the freedom struggle. Absolutely. So there is this feminist sociologist, Madhu Kishwar. She has analyzed in detail how Gandhi impacted the position of women in our society, women's issues. She says Gandhi's impact was twofold. There were two major impacts of Gandhian leadership on women's issues, women's perceived role in society. One thing was that under Gandhian leadership, there was politicization of women. Politicization of women. Like she said, rightly said, under Gandhian leadership, a large number of women joined the anti-colonial struggle. So, big deal? It is indeed a big deal, friends. Why? Because it challenged the conventional understanding of the accepted social role of women. What is the conventional understanding? Mahila ki sahi jagah kahan hoti hai? Inside the confines of the four walls of the home. Yes or no? Ghar ki char diwari mein. But Gandhi legitimized a more public role for women. Women venturing out in public spaces, participating in Politics. Politics conventionally was understood to be the domain of men. But Gandhi sought an equal and active role for women in the public and political arena. Yes or no? So Gandhian politics legitimized women stepping out of their homes beyond the chains of domesticity and taking active part in political life of the country. So politics no more remained the sole preserve of men. Yes or no? Another thing Gandhi did, very interestingly, not only politicization of women, but also what Kishore terms as feminization of politics. Under Gandhian leadership, there was also a feminization of politics. Feminization of politics matlab kya hai? Politics, conventionally was seen as or was associated with masculine traits. Politics is about control, domination, assertion. Are you with me? Power, and so on. Gandhi associated modern politics with what are typically regarded as feminine virtues or traits. For example, अगर कोई तुम्हें एक चांटा मारे, क्या करो? दूसरा गाल आगे कर दो. कौन करता है ये? नहीं, यू आर नॉट गांधीयन एट ऑल. गांधीयन स्पिरिट क्या कहती है? कोई एक मारे तो दूसरा खाओ. ठीक है ना? और ये किसका ट्रेट है? कौन करता है ये टैक्टिक्स यूज? विमेन. इन दी होम मारोगे और मार लो. Are you with me? In other words, using moral power against a mightier enemy. Yes or no? गांधी जी का फेवरेट हथियार भूख हड़ताल. कौन खाना छोड़ता है? नहीं खाऊंगी. Gandhi made it a political tactic, acceptable, mainstream, and not indicating powerlessness, indicating forbearance, endurance. Yes or no? So these kind of feminine tactics and virtues, patience, moral groundedness, speaking truth to power, Gandhi brought to Indian politics, leading to feminization of politics. ठीक? During this phase, several women's organizations were also established in various provinces, culminating in the establishment of All India Women's Conference as a pan-India apex kind of organization, raising women's issues. Yes or no? अरे एक कमेंट आया है. Did the partition happen because of the feminization of the Congress? हाँ, चलिए. So several, the kind of demands that were raised by women leaders, women's organizations during this time were about greater public participation by women, about having more women in positions of power, women entering legislature. Are you with me? Also rights for women over property, inheritance, modifying personal laws which are somewhat biased against women, and so on and so forth. And indeed, a good number of female leaders made their presence felt in the public domain. Leaders like Sarojini Naidu, Annie Besant, Margaret, Cousins, हाँ, और अरुणा, आसफ अली, and the works. ठीक है? Sorry, कमला देवी, अच्छा कमला नेहरू, मदर टेरेसा, पता नहीं कहां से. खैर, ठीक है. ये फेज कैसा रहा? Wait, how was this phase of women's movement in India? बताइए ना. It may have influenced the making of the Indian Constitution. You bet it did. This phase, friends, was a roaring success. Roaring success. Because when the Constitution was enacted, and over the next decade or so, various pro-women legislation was passed. It was as if the whole agenda of women's organizations, they were met. Are you with me? Whatever demands were laid by the women's organizations and leaders in the public domain, they seem to have been accepted and incorporated in the legal and constitutional framework. So much so that women's movements in India went into a deep slumber. सो गई, काम खत्म, पैसा हजम. Whatever the women's organizations and movements sought to achieve, they, it seemed, had achieved with the constitution and progressive laws like Hindu Succession Act and so on and so forth. समझ रहे हैं आप? So the women's movement in India went into a lull or some sort of a temporary suspension. But then we see, friends, that around 1970s and 80s begins the second wave of women's movements in India. क्यों? जब सब कुछ जो तुमने मांगा हमने दिया, समाज ने दिया, जो महिलाओं ने मांगा, फिर 70 के दशक में महिलाएं फिर क्यों खड़ी हो गईं? क्या प्रॉब्लम है? सॉरी, implementation बुरा हुआ, you were saying. Huh? Leaving Gita, a follow-up comment, ki was partition a result of feminization of politics? Leaving the Gita and adopting Gandhism and Buddhism were perhaps the biggest bane of the last century. We'll have that discussion on another sweet day. Yeah. Why did women's movements kind of, restart once again, leading to the second wave in 1970s and 80s? There were various reasons as follows. Pehli baat, as you guys have rightly pointed out, friends, the implementation was ineffective. It was realized by now, 20 years after the coming into force of the Constitution, that the promise of gender equality is largely on paper. It is not being translated into a social reality. ठीक? UN, United Nations, they had declared 1975 to 1984 as the international decade of women. So internationally, they were focused on women's issues. That period, I think 1976 to 85, was declared International Decade for Women. Also, friends, there was a very important report titled Towards Equality. Towards Equality. This report was, basically drafted, made by a committee created by the then Union government headed by Indira Gandhi. And it had some very prominent sociologists amongst its authors. People like Veena Majumdar and Latika Sarkar. They were amongst the key authors of the Towards Equality report. This report basically highlighted continued patriarchal tendencies and systemic gender discrimination that women confront in our society despite the constitutional and legal promise of equality. ठीक? क्या क्यों confused हो? बताओ. Latika Sarkar, Veena Majumdar. Write what you are hearing. ठीक? During this second phase, friends, women's movement in India expressed itself in two broad ways. One was there were localized struggles. By women in many parts of the country. During 70s, 80s, many localized struggles on variety of issues. For example, in Bombay, there was an anti-price rise movement. In Andhra Pradesh, there was an anti-arak movement. Arak is the locally made liquor. Okay, so against the local liquor that was being produced. Anti-price rise movement in Bombay. Bombay matlab Maharashtra. There was the Chipko movement in the Pauri Garhwal region, Uttarakhand, okay, in which the local women again participated very enthusiastically. Why are we calling them women's movements? I mean, price rise affects everybody, doesn't it? Or liquor consumption has adverse consequences for the whole society. Yeah, environmental degradation is not gender specific. Why are these being discussed as women's movements? Led by women, one important dimension. So why were women enthusiastic participants particularly? Absolutely. So yes, these are wider social issues, no doubt, be it environmental degradation, price rise, etc. But they have particularly adverse consequences for women. For example, friends, when the ecological balance is disturbed, say due to felling of trees like in the Pauri Garhwal, Uttarakhand region, the local women would be particularly distressed because they would have to, say the water table is lowered, they will have to travel farther away to fetch water. Are you with me? Price rise affects everybody, but it was middle class, क्या बोलते हैं इनको, and lower middle class homemakers whose budget was very precarious and their household budget would be very directly and visibly impacted by any price rise. Likewise, the anti-Arak movement in Andhra, because women particularly were victims of domestic violence and reduced spending on children's education, etc. The men were happy to fritter money away on alcohol consumption, but it made women's lives worse. So we saw many localized such struggles, localized in the sense they were confined to a geography. Their participants were mostly local women. These were women from the lower rung of the social ladder, tribal women, village women, uneducated typically, and so on and so forth. Are you with me? The second strand of women's struggles during this phase was carried out in the urban areas, specifically in the educational hubs. Places like Jawaharlal Nehru University, ya Delhi University, ya Pune University. In the big, thriving metro cities, specifically universities and colleges. Here, the profile of women participating was drastically different. These were educated women, privileged women in many ways. These guys, they focused on writing extensively on women's issues, writing in, say, newspaper articles, research papers on women's issues. Women's departments, courses on women's issues were started in many universities. Are you with me? ये थी जो पढ़ी लिखी बाल कटी महिलाएं, raising women's issues, right? Also, undeniably, these women activists, they were also greatly exposed to and to certain degree influenced by the feminist movement in the West. So they came up with a lot of feminist literature. Publishing houses dedicated to, publishing feminist literature were established by some women in the cities, in the university campuses. एक था काली फॉर विमेन, एक था जुबान, ऐसे करके कई फेमिनिस्ट लिटरेचर फोकस्ड पब्लिशिंग हाउसेस एस्टैब्लिश किए गए. मैगजीन्स लाए गए. एक मनुषी नाम की थी, मधु किश्वर ने स्टार्ट की थी. ठीक है. What kind of issues were raised during this 70s, 80s wala phase? The second wave? Various issues. For example, now issues like custodial rape of women. Such issues got highlighted. This was the time when the Mathura rape case, which I had mentioned in an earlier lecture, that took place. Are you with me? In that context, the issue of custodial rape, the issue of dowry harassment and dowry deaths, that was raised. Since more girl children were entering schools, physical and sexual safety of the girl child became a matter of concern. The plight of prostitutes, widows being abandoned in certain cities or places like, कहां पे विधवाओं को अबैंडन किया जाता है? मथुरा वृंदावन टाइप्स. ठीक है. ये सारी चीजें. Also the issue of sati once again came to the fore in public discourse. Why sati? It was banned like 100 years or so back. There was a case of a young bride, Roop Kanwar, being burnt on her husband's funeral pyre in where? Rajasthan. In Rajasthan. So basically what happened, this young girl, and this was not too far away from Jaipur, which is like a very, very bustling city, right? Young girl committed suicide. There were many onlookers who cheered her on. Who cheered her on. After the commission of that act, a festival of sorts began to be celebrated there. That place became kind of a Tirath Sthal. And people from very far-flung areas would visit there. People from Delhi would go there, educated people in their swanky cars from Delhi and Jaipur, they would visit that place and pay obeisance. So there was a glorification of sati. And this was 1980s, second half. Rajiv Gandhi was the prime minister. So, women's organization and activists got enraged that India, which is on the cusp of the 21st century, a modern progressive nation, but such acts which are medieval customs like sati are still being practiced. Rajiv Gandhi was seen as this future visionary young leader who will take India into the next century. पर आज के भारत में भी ऐसी घटनाएं हो रही हैं. So a lot of agitations were there. रूप कवर केस. So उसके बाद सती लॉज में चेंज लाए गए. ठीक है, मेकिंग इट स्ट्रिंजेंट पनिशमेंट इवन फॉर ऑनलुकर्स और चियरिंग ऑन. पहले क्या था, ओनली दोज डायरेक्टली इन्वॉल्व्ड काइंड ऑफ कुड बी दिस थिंग. Another issue which came to public attention was maintenance for Muslim women. Maintenance for Muslim women. This was in the context of Shahbano case. Shahbano was an old Muslim lady who after many years of marriage was divorced by her Muslim husband. She was awarded maintenance. Okay, as per Islamic law, the husband claimed he was not liable to pay her maintenance beyond the iddat period. Iddat period hota hai 3 lunar months ka, during which time it is ascertained whether the lady in question is carrying a child of the man. कि वो पता लग जाएगा 3 महीने में अगर उसके बच्चे से प्रेग्नेंट होगी तो अलग बात है, अगर नहीं होती तो आदमी ने बोला कि मेरा देना नहीं बनता. The court awarded her maintenance. Okay, that she was an old lady and had no other this thing and so on. But the Rajiv Gandhi government, under pressure from the Muslim orthodoxy, it reversed the court judgment effectively. Are you with me? To pander to the Muslim vote bank, they reversed the court judgment and nullified that award of maintenance. So there was a hue and cry regarding this issue. ठीक है? The third wave of the feminist movement in India, friends, began or we are living through it, dare I say. It has been going on since 1990s. 1990s में क्या हुआ? There was a very significant change in our social and cultural landscape. क्या हुआ? Globalization का period था. So with the opening up of the economy, we had many Western civil society organizations, funding from the West, so many things, media exposure, so greater or later on internet connectivity, so greater exposure to Indian feminists from Western developments and Western feminism, right? So क्या issues हैं आज के महिलाओं के, बताइए. इस फेज में पिछले 30 सालों में आपके जन्म से अब तक क्या इश्यूज रेज किए गए हैं? Public safety of women, this tirade against sexual crimes against women, particularly since after Nirbhaya, or domestic violence, sexual harassment at the workplace. Yes or no? There was the Vishakha guidelines by the Supreme Court and then the POSH Act. Yes? And the hashtag #MeToo movement also highlighted sexual harassment in public and workplace, marital rape, or challenging the menstruation taboo. Right? So a lot of young girls, what they did in college and university campuses, they stuck sanitary pads on trees and, in public areas. The idea was to get over the taboo associated with menstruation. Otherwise, menstruation has always been a very, very hush-hush kind of topic in our society. I remember I used to buy pads for my sisters when I was a young boy. तो वो मेरे को बोलते नहीं थे, वो मुझे पर्ची पे लिख के देते थे that you go and hand over this पर्ची to the chemist, as if मैं अनपढ़ हूं. और उसमें लिखा होता था कि ये विस्पर का चाहिए या कुछ. It was such a not talked about kind of thing in our society. फिर मैं जाके केमिस्ट को वो देता था और वो मेरे को एक काले पॉलिथीन में लपेट के छुपा के ड्रग्स की तरह वो दे देता था. ठीक है? So women could not themselves procure or buy this thing, and it was not a talked about thing. So that taboo associated with what is a very normal bodily biological process associated with the half of the population, that is sought to be broken. Also access to places of worship. What we saw during the Sabrimala protests. In Sabrimala temple in Kerala, women of menstruating age, girls and women of menstruating age were not granted access to the temple because the deity, the presiding deity, was a brahmachari. Likewise, Muslim women, their access to mosques, Haji Ali Dargah is there in Mumbai, where Muslim women demanded entry. Right? Likewise, yes, reforming Muslim personal laws or Muslim women's various issues. Issues like hijab became a controversial talking point in Karnataka. Whether the right to wear hijab or against hijab. In any case, hijab became a talking point. Before that, triple talaq. Other issues which are considered as patriarchal, like polygamy. Polygamy matlab, a Muslim man can have 4 wives at a time. And Muslim women cannot have 4 husbands. So it's like a one-way street. Nikah halala. Okay? These kind of practices. Are we aware? Nikah halala kya hota hai? If a Muslim man divorces his wife, okay, but they want to remarry after that. They want to again patch up and get back together. Before they can get back, no crosstalk, brother, the woman must, as per Islamic law, get married to another person, consummate that marriage. In other words, enter into sexual relations with that person, get a divorce from him, which is legally valid, and only then she can marry her first husband. And using this custom, it was argued that many Muslim clergy, they were sexually exploiting Muslim women. Abhi bhi hai. Matlab, it is not illegalized as yet, the way triple talaq has been or hijab was banned. Okay? But it has been raised. So such kinds of issues, friends, have been taken up. The 50 million missing campaign, talking about female feticide and infanticide by Rita Banerjee. Yes, brother. Absolutely. In gross violation of the PCPNDT Act, Preconception Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Act, which prohibits the use of ultrasound machines for sex-selective abortions. Despite that, in several places like Haryana, Punjab, the sex ratio was abysmally low. So against that, absolutely. So all these developments we've seen happening in the present phase. Talking about some of these issues in slightly greater detail, specifically Muslim women's issues. One issue that gained a lot of attention, that invited a Supreme Court judgment and a subsequent parliamentary legislation, was triple talaq. ट्रिपल तलाक क्या प्रैक्टिस होती है? इट इज ऑल्सो कॉल्ड तलाक ए बिद्दत. तलाक ए बिद्दत. If a Muslim man pronounces the word talaq thrice, then it is deemed to result in divorce between the man and his wife. ठीक? तलाक ए बिद्दत या ट्रिपल तलाक, it is regarded as a valid form of divorce in Islamic law. It is not a preferred form of divorce or not an encouraged form of divorce, but it is still a valid form of divorce in Islamic law. In India, personal laws of Muslims are governed by the Sharia. Sharia matlab jo Islamic law hai. There is the Muslim Personal Law Sharia Application Act 1937, which says कि Muslims के जो personal matters होंगे, personal matters हो गए family related, marriage, divorce, maintenance, property transfer and so on, guardianship of children. इन मामलों में it will be as per the Islamic law or Sharia. ठीक है? And as the ulema or the Muslim clergy have interpreted the Sharia, triple talaq was a valid form of divorce. But then a Supreme Court judgment in the Shaira Bano case, if I remember correctly, because it was Shah Bano se Shaira Bano tak. Shaira Bano case held the triple talaq unconstitutional, or specifically instant triple talaq was held to be unconstitutional. Instant matlab एक ही बार में 3 बोल देना. As per if you go truly by the book, वो जो 3 pronouncements के बीच में 1 month का gap होना चाहिए, you know, so that both parties have time to rethink and patch up if required and so on. But a lot of people were doing it in a jiffy. So Supreme Court declared instant triple talaq as unconstitutional, and following which the Parliament also enacted a law declaring it to be a crime, and the husband could be put in jail for declaring instant triple talaq. What is your take? अच्छी बात है क्या ट्रिपल तलाक को आउटलॉ करना चाहिए था? Yes or no? Yes. Why? In fact, I'll specifically be happy to hear Muslim voices on the issue, if any. Brother? He's saying, using rather grotesque language, but saying that it amounts to sexual exploitation of women. This practice of triple talaq. Bitia, women's opinion is neglected. In fact, women's consent is not required or necessary for the talaq to take place. It can even take place in her absence. She need not be physically present. Many Muslim men, they had started giving talaq online. Instagram पे, SMS के जरिए, memes के जरिए, emails के जरिए, हाँ, memes तो नहीं सुना था मैंने, but yes, emails के जरिए, टेलीफोन पे, हाँ, बिल्कुल, absolutely. So it is, this move was welcomed across the board by large sections of society and many feminist organizations and Muslim women's organizations as well. why it was welcomed, that, you know, the Indian constitution has made a very clear promise to all citizens, a promise of equality, including gender equality. So to fulfill that constitutional mandate of gender equality, practices like triple talaq, which are outdated, which emanate from patriarchal customs, they need to be weeded out. Are you with me? Simply, Muslim women are disadvantaged vis-a-vis Muslim men. Women could not pronounce triple talaq word thrice and get rid of the husband, but men could. Are you with me? So it is against gender justice and gender equality. Also, it was pointed out that triple talaq is not a part of accepted Islamic law. There was this legal scholar, Tahir Mahmood, who was also the chairman of the National Commission for Minorities. उन्होंने बोला ये un-Islamic है. Triple talaq is an un-Islamic practice. The Holy Quran does not provide grounds for or justify practices like triple talaq. तो unconstitutional भी है और un-Islamic भी है. In fact, it was also pointed out that several Muslim majority countries, several Islamic republics have also outlawed triple talaq much before India. हम तो एक secular country हैं, but even in many Islamic countries, triple talaq has been prohibited, including neighboring countries like Bangladesh, including in Turkey, in Egypt, many countries. ठीक है? Because of such outdated customs, Muslim women were at the mercy of their husbands. The husbands would pronounce or misuse this power of triple talaq which was vested in them on the flimsiest of grounds. So men could do it in an inebriated state. Daru pee ke. Men could do it on grounds like refusal of sex by the wife, for not being obedient enough, and so on and so forth, for not serving food on time, and so on and so forth. So it was a gross misuse of a customary power vested in Muslim men. ठीक? Moreover, friends, it was pointed out by the government also that this demand for doing away with instant triple talaq has come from the Muslim Samaj itself. Muslim women in India want to do away with practices like triple talaq. There is this civil society organization, कहाँ गया? हाँ, वही भारतीय, कहाँ लिखा है? भारतीय मुस्लिम महिला आंदोलन. भारतीय मुस्लिम महिला आंदोलन conducted a survey which found 92% Indian Muslim women favored banning instant triple talaq. Okay, this Bharatiya Muslim Mahila Andolan, it is headed by Zakia Soman. In any case, point is, friends, it is the government's bounden, the state's bounden duty to weed out patriarchal tendencies from various religious communities. The Indian state has already taken a lot of steps. Progressive legislations have been passed for Hindu women. But Muslim women have not benefited from this progressive and liberal orientation of the modern Indian state. तो क्या भारत सरकार का मुस्लिम महिलाओं के प्रति दायित्व नहीं that they be liberated from the clutches of Islamic patriarchy, quite like Hindu women have been liberated from the clutches of its cultural patriarchy? Are you with me? So सरकार का ये काम ही होता है. Clear? But this ban on triple talaq, specifically criminalization of triple talaq, has also been subjected to criticisms as follows. Firstly, friends, there is this former union minister, Salman Khurshid. He's written a book titled Triple Talaq, Examining Faith. He says that, this over-focus, excessive focus on triple talaq is a part of the agenda of the Hindutva forces to demonize Muslims and Islam. ऐसा नहीं है मुस्लिम महिलाओं की दिक्कत नहीं है, but statistically triple talaq is least of their worries. A very small fraction of the total Muslim women's population is adversely affected by triple talaq. A very, very minute, minuscule fraction. The incidence of triple talaq is very low, but the BJP is making it a larger than life issue to basically project or portray Muslims as backward, misogynistic, regressive, medieval kind of a religion. Are you with me? मोदी जी को मुस्लिम महिलाओं से कोई प्यार नहीं है, उनको मुस्लिम मर्दों से एंटी प्यार है. ठीक है. ठीक. ऑल इंडिया मुस्लिम पर्सनल लॉ बोर्ड, ये ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है बेसिकली खड़ूस बुढ़े मुसलमान मर्दों की जमात. ठीक है. They were the on the other side in the Supreme Court on the issue of triple talaq, and they were arguing that the government should not legislate on this issue. It is not a matter fit for state intervention. Whether such changes should take place, if at all, they should come from within the community rather than the state doing it. Because when the government does it, friends, please appreciate, then we risk going down a very slippery slope. Our constitution, they argued, gives all religious communities freedom to practice, profess, and so on and so forth their religion. Are you with me? To manage their own affairs in the matters of community. Secularism is an integral promise of the Indian constitution. So the state should not unduly interfere in the matters of a religious community. To give you a sense of their argument, what if tomorrow the state outlaws Mangal Sutra or Sindoor as symbols of patriarchy, or a tyohar like Raksha Bandhan or Karwa Chauth as oppressive for women? Will the Hindu Samaj be willing to accept such state intervention? Okay, so that is why they were of the view that it's not the government's business to initiate reform in a community. Okay? Government is, such actions will militate against secularism or religious freedom guaranteed by the constitution. Okay? Another important point of criticism, and particularly of the government move, not the Supreme Court judgment, was that the pronouncement of triple talaq was made into a criminal offense. Criminal offense means what? Muslim men can now be jailed for that offense. Critics argued that if Muslim men are jailed for pronouncing triple talaq, it will leave Muslim women worse off. They are financially dependent for their own and their children's well-being on their husbands or families. अगर पति ही जेल चले जाएगा तो उनको कौन पालेगा पोसेगा? Who will provide for them? Are you with me? क्या सरकार जिम्मेवारी उठाएगी? तो इसको क्रिमिनलाइज नहीं करना चाहिए था कि जेल जाना पड़ रहा है व्यक्ति को. ठीक है? दैट इज ऑन द इशू ऑफ ट्रिपल तलाक. Will you allow me another? Raise your hands if you are in favor of continuing. Don't do this. More. Both hands. Raise your hands if you are against continuing. Chaliye. Bowing down to public demand for once. Okay? Let's not make it a trend. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद.